More than half of Americans think the country is in the midst of a recession right now. But actually, the economy is growing. And that's not the only misperception that Americans have about the economy. A Harris poll for The Guardian showed that half of Americans also believe that unemployment is at a 50-year high, when in fact it's near a 50-year low. So why are people's perceptions so vastly different from economic reality? According to experts, that's probably because of a different phenomenon that's going on: inflation. For many people, the difference between inflation and a recession can be a little confusing. Let's take a look at the key differences between these two economic phenomena and how they may affect your money. What is inflation? Inflation means that the price of goods and services is increasing. Inflation is normal, but high inflation is not. And since the COVID-19 pandemic, consumers have seen higher than normal levels of inflation. From July 2021 to July 2022, the cost of food increased almost 11%, while energy costs increased more than 30%. More recently, inflation has cooled off significantly. In June, the cost of goods and services fell for the first time since the pandemic started in 2020. So why are people still feeling the sting, even though inflation has improved dramatically? Because when inflation has been higher than ideal for a while, which, by the way, according to the Federal Reserve, should be around 2%, it can make things harder for everyday families, especially if they're already living paycheck to paycheck. Unless your income increases more than inflation, you may find that you can afford less than normal. In fact, data shows that there was negative wage growth between April 2021 and April 2023, which means consumer salaries did not keep up with the increase in prices for goods and services. Starting in May 2023, the trend reversed, but only marginally, which means that salaries were barely able to catch up with inflation. That left everyday people feeling anxious about their ability to pay for their needs. To make matters worse, the Federal Reserve has raised interest rates over the last couple of years, which has made the cost of borrowing higher. For example, credit card rates have gone up, and high mortgage rates have priced many people out of the housing market. The irony is that raising interest rates is precisely what has helped the Fed bring inflation down, but everyday people still felt the sting. For all these reasons, millions of people have been feeling like the economy is not doing well. They've been mistakenly thinking that the economy is in a recession. But what does that term even mean? A recession is an economic term that refers to an economy that is contracting, not expanding. That is typically measured by a term called the gross domestic product, or GDP. During a recession, the GDP is shrinking. During economic growth, the GDP is expanding. Also, unemployment is typically high during a recession, and the economic outlook is bleak. The typical recession lasts a little less than a year on average. During a recession, the Federal Reserve often cuts interest rates to increase consumer spending and boost the economy. This may result in lower than normal interest rates, which are great for mortgages, auto loans, student loans, personal loans, and even credit cards. Many consumers choose to refinance during a recession to take advantage of lower costs. On the flip side, unemployment usually rises during a recession, and jobs can be harder to come by. This can cause major problems for people who get laid off. So are we in a recession now? The answer is no. Take a look at this chart. It portrays the US GDP, which has been rising for the biggest part of the last 70 years. The gray areas represent recessions, which are times when the US GDP has fallen. For example, during the 2008 financial crisis, and briefly in 2020 at the beginning of the pandemic. Nowadays, struggling consumers think that the US is in a recession because they're having a hard time affording everyday items. However, that is due to the lingering effects of high inflation, not because of a recession. Also, unemployment is low, all good signs for the economy. Understanding the differences between inflation and a recession can make it easier to know what's going on in the world, the economy, and in your wallet. And if you want more content like this from MarketWatch and the Explainomics playlist, please subscribe and keep checking back for new videos. And we'll see you next time.